Hello, my name is Rebecca Johnson, and I am an interview with the Public Library of Cincinnati in Hamilton County. Today I'm interviewing Bing Calvert. Her name is Beth, but she goes by Bing. This is March 13th, 2007, and we're at the Cheviot Branch Library. Our camera operator today is Dennis Daly, and we are here to talk about Bing's experiences with World War II. Bing, can you tell me about your early childhood and upbringing? Tell me where you were and what you were doing during those years.
You want me to start at the beginning?
Start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning, okay. I was born in Florence, Wisconsin, which is way up north where it's cold. We only lived there till I was maybe 4 or 5. And then my family moved to Chicago.
Why was that?
Why?
Why did they move to Chicago?
I guess so my dad had a job. I don't really know. He was a barber. And I don't know. I guess a job. That's the only thing I can come up with. So anyhow, that's I consider my hometown. Chicago is my hometown. I guess where you grew up is going to be your hometown.
And where did you go to school in Chicago?
I went to Beidler Grammar School and Austin High School. That was it.
Your high school education, was it a general high school education or a business administration?
It was a college preparatory course, which I never got to. The college part.
Oh, and what happened that made you not get to college?
Well, I just fooled around for a while, and then the big war came on.
And so what year was it that you graduated from high school?
Oh, gosh. I don't remember.
Don't remember? And, but when did you decide to go into the armed forces, or were you recruited?
Well, I was from a very patriotic family. My dad joined the Coast Guard Reserve, and it was just, everything was always patriotic in my house. So I thought, okay, this is something I can do. I can join the service. And I was going with a sailor at the time, so I thought, I'll get in the waves. And then I thought, no, they don't go overseas. And if I'm going to do this, let's do it all the way. So I joined the WAC, which at the time was WAAC. They were an auxiliary corps.
So the WAC stood for?
Pardon?
And tell me what the initials stood for?
Women's Army Auxiliary Corps.
And what was that branch then? What was
That's the Army.
The Army.
That's the Army, right.
So, and what did the Women's Auxiliary Corps do?
What did they what?
Well, what did you do for the Army?
Oh, well, first of all, I went to basic training in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. Then they sent me to administration school. Me who had taken nothing like that in high school. They sent me to administration school in Kentucky.
What did they teach you there?
How to take care of books and records and things like that. From there, I was sent to Marchfield, California, which is an air base. And while I was there, I did work in an office as a typist, type. And I expressed my desire to go overseas. So my friend, whose name also started with F, and I got picked to go. There was 2 openings. So we went back to Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia for overseas training, which is tough. A lot of people did not pass that.
Tell me about that training.
The training at Fort Oglethorpe, well, just like the men would get. You crawl under barbed wire with live ammunition going over your head. You don't raise your head unless you want to be dead. It probably wasn't live, but they told us it was. So you had to jump off of, in the swimming pool, off of the high dive with your arms like this. That's teaching you how to jump off a ship, so that when you hit the water, your hands don't come up and knock you out. And it was that type of thing. And then from there, well, then I went overseas.
Can you tell me how it is you ended up having a friend with the last name F?
Well, that's the Army. She came from Chicago, too. She lived on the west side, like I did. And we just did everything together in basic training, KP and everything, so we just started singing together.
Well, yes, tell me about your your singing career
Singing
within
career,
the armed,
okay.
within the armed forces.
Well, we just did that like when we were doing KP and stuff.
And what was this girl's name?
Jean Forrest. And hi, Jean. Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine.
Okay. She lives in Texas, and we still correspond. In fact, I've seen her a couple times. So anyway, we get on the ship at Newport News, Virginia, at night. And the berths are like 3 high, and I'm in the third one on the top. During the night, we hit a storm. And I woke up in the morning and I thought, why is the ceiling going in circles like this? And I was so sick for 3 days. And that trip took 42 days without ever having gotten up. So don't ever ask me to go on a cruise. I will never set foot in a ship. A boat, yes, but a ship, no. So we had no idea where we were going. The war was on. So they zigzagged all over the place.
And they never told you
They
where
never
you
told
were
us where we were going. Nobody knew. So we finally landed at Bombay, India. And from there we took a train, their idea of a train.
What was it like?
Very rustic. In fact, you get on, and they had bunks, but they folded up in the wall, and that's what you sat on during the day. And then at night you pulled this bunk down, you slept on that. And the first day out, we stopped for lunch, and of course there's no cafeteria. If you go out the door on these, you're outside. You're not in a hallway, outside. So we're out there eating lunch off of a mess kit, of course, and you're standing there holding it like this, and all of a sudden a buzzard would come down and take half of your dinner away. So you ended up just giving it to the buzzard. So then we landed at Calcutta at night, and you're stepping over bodies of people sleeping in the depot, or whatever they called it. And they took us to our camp there.
These were bodies of native people there.
No, just people sleeping there.
Just people sleeping there.
Yeah, because they didn't have any place to go, I guess. So they assigned us a bunk, and this was Hastings Air Base near Calcutta, India. And the next day they decided they would show us Calcutta. They took us in an open truck. And as you're driving along to get to Calcutta, we were like 18 miles from Calcutta. As you're going along, you think, what are these people doing along the roadside? Well, they were doing what comes naturally, and they're not inhibited at all. Okay?
So they were, what were they doing? Just
Don't tell me. You figure it out.
just daily things, but
Right.
without any
Just
kind
what
of
comes
worry about it.
naturally.
Got
Okay.
it.
So anyhow, one of the places they took us was a burning ghat. That's G-H-A-T. Burning ghat. Burning ghat. That's where they burn bodies. It's like a crematory. And it had this little boy laid out on slats of wood with all kind of leis and gorgeous flowers. He was dead, of course. And they poured something, which I assume was gasoline, on him and lit it. And if you have never smelled burning flesh, you don't want to. That was one of the places. Then they took us in this gorgeous Jain temple. It's Jain. And there are jewels stuck in the wall. Actual jewels stuck in the wall. And these people would no more have touched it than the man in the moon. You had to take your shoes off. And when we came out, that was fun because everybody had the same kind of shoes. Except your initials were in there somewhere. And that was our tour of Calcutta.
Now, was that a tour that everybody got when they first came?
Well, there were only 65 of us
The whole time?
that went on the first contingent.
And you
We were the first
contingent?
wax to go over there.
All right.
But before that, I go back to California. At one time, they dropped the A. We were no longer auxiliary. So it was just WAC after that. Okay?
So you were the first 65 women to come onto this base.
Right.
And
To
then
go to India, I guess.
To go to India, period.
I think so, yeah. I'm
And
not
then
sure.
how many more?
Well, some came after that, yeah. We were in an old abandoned jute mill. And it had all skylights up above. And at one point, a mongoose got in there somehow. And they're very slow walking, and we're all just walking around watching the mongoose. It didn't bother anybody.
So jute is that fiber that you make baskets and things out of, is that it?
Jute?
Jute.
It's something to do with material, I'm not sure exactly. It's like cotton, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Anyway, they didn't use it anymore for that. That was our barracks.
So tell me, you were with, did you get to meet a lot of Native people while you were there?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, and they're lovely people. Just lovely. We had one little gal was assigned to us. She was called an Aya. It's Ayah, I think. And she was assigned to like 6 of us. And she would do anything you wanted her to, like make your bed, like a little maid. And she was pure in head. She really was.
So you basically had a servant while
Yes.
you were there. Did the men have that same experience?
Yes.
Did they get eyes too?
Shine your shoes and things like that.
So you also talked about earlier the English people that were there as well. Tell me about what you saw.
You want to hear that?
Yeah.
The British were not very nice. I'm putting that mildly. They treated the Indians like scum. And that bothered the Americans no end, because we don't, as a rule, don't do something like that, And they would just, if an Indian was in their way, they would just push him out of the way, like, get out of my way, you're a crumb. And I didn't appreciate that. So I have no fondness for the British.
Were these the British that were governing the?
They were service
area?
people,
They were service people.
some of them. The majority of them were in the service.
But you saw this behavior on a kind of overall general
Oh,
basis.
yes. Oh, yes. In town, on the base.
How did you see the Americans treat the Native people?
They were much better, much better. It was just like a compassion, like, okay, you don't have any money, I feel sorry for you. Because we were paid so well.
Were you paid?
Well, for sure, but it was a minimum amount. But you got your clothes, you got your food, you got your lodging. What more could you ask for?
And you got the same pay as someone else of your rank?
Oh, yeah, according to your rank.
What was your rank when you first came to Calcutta?
A sergeant.
Sergeant. And then how did, just to jump ahead briefly, what was your rank when you ended your service?
What do you
Your
mean?
rank when you ended the service?
You don't have a rank when you enter the service.
No, I mean, like, how far had you climbed? What was your, were you still a sergeant when you left the,
Oh, yeah.
bivouac?
When you get out of the service, you retain your rank, yeah.
Okay.
So I am still a sergeant. Yes. Doesn't do me any good, but I am.
Yeah. So when you were at Calcutta, what were your responsibilities?
I was assigned to what they call, what in the world did they call it? Anyway, you help, like, the guys that wanted to borrow an instrument or a game of some kind. I've forgotten the name of the organization, that's okay. But what I did, there was a new colonel came on, his name was Youngie. It was Junge, Youngie. And he called different ones in and asked what they would like to do. And I said, I would like to sing with the band. So he said, fine. So that's what I did. And we would go all over. We would go to different bases. I was the only WAC that had an overnight pass.
Really? So tell me how you got into the singing, because we didn't quite talk about that.
Everybody in my family sang. My mother was always singing, my dad was singing, my brother sang. My sister is now a vocalist out in California. It's just a musical family. So I enjoy singing. And I would sing, like, when I was at Fort Oglethorpe, we would sing just for our own amusement more than anything. But in California...
You and your friend?
Pardon?
You and your friend started
Yeah,
singing?
she and I. In California, you're all too young. There was a show called Ezra Stone, something about father. See, that blew my mind there. Anyway, he put on shows out there. And he would have Gene and I sing on his shows. And at one point, they were going to travel all over California. So I got leave to do that, and Gene and I went, and we were, there was one fellow that sang with us. Now, we sang to sell bonds, not bombs now, but bonds, okay? And the one band we sang with, we were called Two Whacks and a Wolf. And then Gene would sing a solo, and I would sing a solo. And we traveled all over Northern California with that group, that was neat. And then it was not too long after that I went overseas.
And you went with your friend?
Yes. We stayed all the way through. We went through all the way through.
So then when you got to Calcutta, you were allowed, you and Jean both were allowed to sing then?
She didn't go into it too much. She eventually ended up going to China.
Oh, did she?
Which I didn't care to do. In fact, to me is funny. Just yesterday in the mail, I got a thing in the mail, a big long envelope to sing, not paying, sing Calvert. And it was all written in Chinese. So they saw the name and transposed it to their own satisfaction, and I became Sing.
That's interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And you never went to China. So what was your experience singing in Calcutta? Or around? Did you go all over India then?
Oh yeah, we'd go to we'd go to different bases.
Different bases.
And then I was singing on the radio in Calcutta. And have you got time yet for this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This one night, usually a group of us would go and take turns singing. And I was the only one that went that night. And when the radio station the channel was over, with no channels in the radio station, I was to come back, and there was no transportation because our buses had stopped, trucks had stopped running back and forth. So they said,
the night?
Mm-hmm. So they said, we'll get you a driver. So this is an open-air truck where you just sit with the driver. He spoke not one word of English, had never been to the air base, and fortunately I knew how to say straight ahead, right, or left. And I got us there. Somehow or other, I got us back to the base. But can you imagine trusting a man alone in the middle of the night in an open-air truck?
So how dangerous was it in Calcutta, in the areas that you were?
Not dangerous at all. I felt no fear from those people whatsoever. Never did I feel any fear from those people.
What about the war, though? Did you feel danger from the war?
Well, the war was mostly around there. This is a CBI. So the war was not touching this particular base at that point.
And the CBI stands for?
China, Burma, India. But the one night, there was an air raid. And do you know what a slit trench is?
Could you explain it?
Well, it's trenches that are dug in the ground like this, quite deep, so that you can go down there to avoid bullets, okay? So when this air raid sounded, we had to go in the slit trenches, and we stayed there all night, and that was a lot of fun. Fortunately, it wasn't cold.
Did you bring cards, or?
We couldn't see anything. It was pitch dark. So that was an adventure right there. So I did have some adventurous times, but they were not the fault of the Indians at any point. In fact, I have some friends who are Indians that go to our church, and they're as nice as they come. So I have love for the Indians. So I've always wanted to go back, but never got there.
I wondered if you did that.
No, I never have.
Yeah. So tell me then, this was around 1944, was it?
44.
When you were singing at this point? You had gone into the service in 43. And how many months do you think it was while you were stateside before you were shipped over? Do you remember? Was it about a year or less?
It had to have been about a year and a half, I guess.
That you were stateside?
Yeah.
Before you went to?
I was in California most of that time.
Okay.
At
So
Marchfield.
then, how long were you in the Indian theater?
In the Indian
Well,
theater?
where were you how long were you in India?
A year and a half.
A year and a half, and you sang that whole time.
Most of the time, yeah.
Any other responsibilities that you had?
Just working in that office occasionally. That was enough, because we did a lot of traveling and all, you know, so.
Were these groups, traveling, singing, and entertaining groups, were they all over the armed forces?
This is just strictly the bass band.
So did a lot of bases have their own bands?
No,
No.
no.
So
But
you're,
these were real musicians too. They were musicians in civilian life. So they were real musicians, not just let me play something so I can get out of this. So,
did they also have to serve, they were musicians, but were they told to get back into their groups to serve in the infantry?
No, no, oh no,
They
oh no.
stayed
This
with
was
this
their
was their
job.
assignment.
Yeah, this was it.
All
You
right.
were with the band, you were privileged, I guess. And but what used to kill me was there was like an enlisted man's club and an officers club. Okay, we played at both of them. And I'm not going to go into this, but anyway, when we got to the officers club, at the enlisted man's club, you know, you had like soft drinks and peanuts and popcorn and stuff. But at the officers club, we got meals. I mean, real meals. And they were jazzy. They were really good. And what was so funny, we'd sit up there on the bandstand. Of course, I'm the only girl in there. The others are all men. And they kept bringing me up drinks, because they had mixed drinks there. They'd bring me up drinks, and I don't drink. So I just kept putting them underneath my chair. And after, when we'd have intermission, I'd give them all to the fellas in the band. They were happy that I'd get all these drinks.
That's interesting. So you enjoyed your time.
Oh, I did. I really did. I don't regret a day of it.
So when did you, another interviewee said that they didn't know, you didn't get information about what was going on in the rest of the war as fast as, say, we would today. Do you feel that being in India, did you feel out of the loop of understanding what was going on in the rest of the world, or did you feel you got good
I don't
information?
think so, yeah. I think we were kept up to snuff on almost anything. You know, I mean, you didn't have email and things like that then, but so what?
Did you know right away when Europe fell?
Yes. One of those pictures that he has is VJ Day, and that's me leading our band down hallways. We celebrated, we played all night long that night. And this was on, the base was on the Hooghly River, which is a tributary of the Ganges. And they had an open air pier, like, where they showed movies. And of course, if you could stand the mosquitoes, you could watch the movie. And another thing we had to do over there was you had to wear long pants. If you didn't wear a skirt, you wore long pants. The mosquitoes were vicious, you know, and you got shots, constantly getting shots. And you had to take Ativan tablets to keep from getting dengue fever, which my to-be husband did get. It's sort of like, it can be really bad, but it wasn't consistent, so he did get over it. He was in the hospital, but he did get over that.
So tell me about meeting your husband.
Well, he was the leader of the band.
Well, that would be convenient.
Yeah. He played saxophone and clarinet very well. He was known in Cincinnati pretty well for being a musician.
His name?
George Calvert. So I think a lot of people would know George. So when we came back, he still played, but I didn't.
Had he played professionally before he went into the service?
Maybe on occasion, but that wasn't his job.
What had he done before he went into the service?
He worked at American Laundry.
Okay. How old was he when he went into the service? Early 20s or late teens?
I really don't know.
You don't remember? All right. And then, so he'd been in Calcutta for a while before you came?
He was there, yeah, he was there maybe a year before I got there. But everybody, when you signed up for the duration plus 6 months. So in other words, they could keep you for 6 months after the war was over. And it was, when the war was over, they had put a sign up, anyone wishing to fly home, whose name was first on that list? I thought, don't get me on another ship.
You flew it back,
I
right?
flew home, and it took 30 days
To fly?
to fly. They kept bumping us off.
Bumping you off in Calcutta or other places?
No, other places along the way.
So how was your journey home? Do you remember your journey and where you stayed?
I have it all written down somewhere, but I know I spent quite some time in Casablanca, which is not as glamorous as it sounds. Those people are about like the ones today. Even little kids were son of a guns. They really were. We were in a hotel right downtown, and they said, don't ever walk any place but right in front of the hotel. A couple of the GIs didn't, got their throats slit. And there were little boys out there, and I mean little boys. And they had like a shoe shine kit, and of course everybody had the same kind of shoes, but they would come out and daub black shoe polish on it, so you had to get a shoe shine. And they were not nice. They were not a bit nice. They were nothing like the Indians, that's for sure.
So you flew home. Now that was so you stayed 6 months after the war? Or did you, after the war ended, and it was the European front that ended, or the entire war?
This is VJ Day. After VJ
Oh,
Day.
VJ Day, yes.
Yeah.
All right, so.
First was VE Day.
Yes, and then it was VJ.
Day.
So then you stayed 6 months more?
No.
No, you were able to go
No,
home
we
sooner?
landed in Florida, finally, from a plane, and landed in Florida. And then they got me home on I think it was a bus at the time. No, a train. Got me home on a train. So I went to Great Lakes, which is outside Chicago. And that's where I was got out of service.
At that time, were you and your husband engaged or married?
We were word of mouth. We knew we were going to get married. He was still over there. He didn't get home until after I did.
How long after?
Maybe a month. So I waited for him, and when he got home, then he immediately got in his car and came to Chicago. And we got married in Chicago.
Soon after? Yeah. And then you moved down to Cincinnati.
And then we moved to Cincinnati.
So tell me about life in India, in the armed forces. What was, you were doing a lot of traveling with the singing, but what was daily life on the base?
Well, see, it was different for me. Most of the girls would go work in an office. And I would go to the office just to be killing time, I guess. You could do whatever you wanted to. You could play tennis if you could stand heat. You could do that type of thing.
How was the weather?
Hot?
All the time?
No, until they had a monsoon. And then we'd just get wet.
It was wet.
But it was cool. It was cool.
And
you had to take, I forgot this part, you had to take rest leave every 6 months to get away from the heat. So you went up in Darjeeling, which is gorgeous. That's where they grow the Darjeeling tea. And you took this train, which had to go, it couldn't go straight up, it's too steep. It went like this. You could get out and walk alongside the train, and catch up to it and get back on again. And Darjeeling is beautiful. Oh, it's so pretty. I even got a glimpse of Mount Everest one day. We got on some burros, and the guide took us somewhere, and fortunately it was a clear day. And the clouds just parted, and there in the distance was Mount Everest. And I thought, I'll never forget this. That was cool.
so Darjeeling, were there places to stay for the service?
Oh yeah.
Was there a base up there?
No, we just stayed actually we stayed in a convent. The girls stayed in a convent. I don't think it was a convent then, but it had been.
And there would be groups of you taking rest leave at the same time?
Yeah. Every 6 months you had to do that.
And it was for the men and for the women?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they get hot too.
Just wondered if they thought that maybe you all
No.
take it as well.
No, I think we were all pretty tough.
Yeah.
You had to be. You could never have passed the physicals for one thing. So I enjoyed the whole 3 years.
Did you get sick ever while you were there from any of the
No?
mosquito-borne illnesses?
No.
No. Did you?
Just seasick. Going over, that's all.
Yeah. And what were the other illnesses that they said? You said that it was the
Well, you can get fevers real easy from the heat and from germs in the air. In fact, while we were over there, two of the fellas that we knew real well that were Indians died of typhoid from the water, and the tank was up on the roof of the hotel. This is a Great Eastern Hotel. Wherever we wanted a good meal, we would go to town because you didn't get it on the base. It was all dehydrated food.
There wasn't one bit of fresh food. Really?
Thanksgiving, they had fresh turkey. I don't know where they got it, but they had turkey. So they had a Thanksgiving dinner on Thanksgiving.
They didn't buy any food from the native population.
You wouldn't want to eat it. There's no way you would eat their food. They don't use fertilizer like we do. They use human fertilizer. So you wouldn't eat their food.
So, and the water that the base had, how?
That was I forgot the name of it. You should have warned me what you were going to ask me. It's like a big canvas bag, a liter, it'll come to me too late, and had little faucets on it, little knobs, and you got to drip your water out of there.
Was it actually rainwater?
It tasted like burlap, but it was water, and it was clean.
It was treated?
It was clean, yeah.
So that was how you were able to keep from getting
Right,
this?
but they had pop and things like that. They even had beer over there for you Cincinnatians. They had beer.
So you said that there was a hotel in town that you would go to eat?
Called the Great Eastern Hotel. And we got to know they had a band. I mean, it was a nice hotel. We got to know the band, and the leader's name, I don't know why I'm remembering these things, he was a Russian, and his name was Tibor Stary. And George and I each had a favorite song, and when we would come there, he would have the band play those two songs. And I thought that was kind of cool. So we'd bring in music, because he couldn't get any music. So then he'd play some of our good familiar songs.
Was Calcutta somewhat of an international town? Were there a lot of different people from different places there?
Probably not during the war. I think at other times there would be. It's very busy. You could walk down the street and it's thick with people. It's almost like New York. That type of, traffic walking around.
So you were there for 3 years, in the services for 3 years.
3 years.
And
Just
then you
about.
came back, and then what did you do after you got married pretty soon?
I got home, I got home in November, and I think George got home in December. We got married the following May.
And then moved back down to Cincinnati.
Well, I had come here so we could find a place to live. As he had said, why don't we get an apartment for a while and save money? Because you don't keep any money when you're in the service. You don't get enough to save any. So I said, I said, I grew up in an apartment. I don't want an apartment. So he went to work, and I stayed with his folks. And I would go out and look for a house. Now, I have never been in this town in my life. So I could have been going in Timbuktu looking at houses. And I found this little house that I just adored. It was a little white frame house in Delhi Hills. And I thought, this is it. So I called the realtor, and then George and I went and looked at the inside of the house. And I said, I gotta have this house. It was old, but I loved it. So that's where we moved, till we moved to White Oak.
Now, did you sing professionally after the service? Didn't want to?
No.
No? What did you end up doing? Did you end up using the GI Bill for any education after the service, or did your husband?
No.
No?
He went back to his old job, and I just stayed home. Unfortunately, we didn't have any children, but we always had a dog, and I have a dog now. I can't be without a dog.
So it sounds like you had a good amount of adventure.
I have.
Service.
I really have.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about your experiences?
Not that I can think of.
No?
Might think of them when I get home. Right now, I'm not thinking.
No, I think this has been a really interesting and
Well,
fun
thank you.
interview. And thank you so much for
You're
your
welcome.
contribution.
I'm glad to do this.